So what you can see on screen is the fundraising and engagement application. So this is one of the components that forms part of the Microsoft Cloud for Nonprofit. There's a bunch of different areas in this application around the development of initiatives around managing incoming gifts, whether they're donations or pledges, the creation of events that you may be running to as part of a campaign, and some other stuff around reporting and general configuration of the application. But we're going to focus today on this fundraising work area. When I land on this area, I actually get quite a rich dashboard of information that gives me an overview of all fundraising activities that are taking place. So I can see active transactions and active campaigns, as well as gifts that have been received in a dashboard view. We're going to drop all the way down on my main navigation on the left and go into campaigns. The concept of campaigns is basically a collection of funding initiatives all in one place that allows you to manage and monitor the performance of a particular campaign. I've got a few different options in here, but we're going to go into our scholarships campaign. This will show me some information. It allows me to categorize the type of campaign and the category of the campaign. It allows me to start to specify something called a designation as well. So this is basically how I can indicate how the funds are going to be spent that are received in as part of the campaign that we're running. So at the moment, I've just got it against basically an education designation. I can indicate the amount of revenue that we expect to receive as part of this campaign. I can track the cost of the campaign. If you're running events, maybe the cost of the venue, of catering, of staffing the event. So tracking the cost against the revenue received to give you a total revenue expected from the campaign are some important metrics. If I come across here to my third tab across, which is performance, this gives me a nice centralized view of the funding that we're raising as part of this campaign. So this is split into two areas. We have our gift performance area, and we have our event performance area. So gifting is around donations that we've received, and I can see on this campaign we have 18 donations at just under 35,000. One pledge so far as part of my campaign. A pledge being funding that is promised over a period of time but not yet received, and donations being ongoing money that is coming in as either as a one-off donation or as a scheduled payment from a donor. Event performance, I can see that we have ran some events. We've had 11 registrations that have generated some revenue for us. We also have some sponsorships across our events, and we've also managed to sell some products. So this page kind of highlights the different avenues and different methods by which we can receive revenue into a particular campaign. If I was just to show my transactions tab on here as well, I can go right down to the granular level to see the actual individual transactions that came in, and whether they were through donations or pledges or event ticket sales, for example. These are the transactions that make up the revenue that we've received so far. I can open one of these transactions to get even more detail about the donation itself. And I can also use this screen to click back and actually see the profile of the donor that made this transaction. And this takes me back up to my contacts area. The reason I wanted to show this page is because you get a nice snapshot in the middle of the contact card, which gives me an overview of the donor's activity. So I can see the last time that we received a gift. I can see how long they've been a member for, if we have a membership program. I can see their lifetime giving. But I can also start to see if this donor is part of a household and their household collectively made donations to various campaigns and initiatives that we're running. And I can actually click through the different people that form the household that this particular donor is part of, and start to see the contributions across everyone within that household. From here, I am now going to go flip to Klevr grants. So we've had our campaign. We've received a bunch of revenue into that campaign from various different sources, and we now want to look at Klevr grants on how we can distribute that funding across different projects and initiatives. To do that, I can just change my application up here by clicking on fundraising and engagement, and this will show me all applications within my environment. And this is a really important concept, and it's a real strong point of the Dynamics platform. So even though I'm going to move from a fundraising and engagement application to a different application called Klevr Grants, they all live within the same environment, which means that they all share the same data source as well. So if I just move over here into my Klevr Grants application, you'll notice that it looks and feels very much like fundraising and engagement. So we have a common user interface across the platform. But if I go down to my contacts in my Klevr Grants area, I have all my contacts from fundraising and engagement immediately available inside grants management. That's without the need to move or migrate or integrate any data between applications. It's the same table, it's the same data source. So we are reducing the technical overhead and the technical debt by having that shared source. In our Klevr Grants application, I'm just going to drop down in my main menu to our funds. And this part of the scenario is where we are going to take the money that we've received in, create a fund from that money, allow applicants to apply for some funding for a project or initiative, and then distribute that funding back out to those projects. So I have our 2023 Graduate Scholarships Fund. If I open this fund, I can see that we've given a fund value of just under $130,000. The fund goes for 12 months, and so far we've approved $15,000 of funding. If I just jump across to our fund sources tab, I can start to see which sources of inbound revenue we're going to apply to this fund. And I can see that I have our scholarships campaign from our fundraising and engagement application. And we've taken just under $34,000 from the money we've raised in that campaign and applied it to this fund. But I can also see that we've applied just under $84,000 from our general annual campaign as well. And we've also carried over some funds from last year's graduate scholarship fund and applied them as a source to the 2023 graduate scholarship fund. So the nice thing about this is I can now start to take a portion of revenue generated from campaigns and roll over any unspent revenue from previous funds to create a collective source for this particular fund for this year. If I go from my fund sources over to my applications tab, I can now start to see the applications that we're receiving in against this fund. Before I go into this application and show you how it looks, I'm just going to switch over to another tab and just give you a view of what an external applicant will see as they use our Klevr portal solution. So I'm logged in as Jared Harvey at the moment. This is our Klevr portal. This is that external facing component that allows external stakeholders to interact with data held within the Dynamics platform. At the moment, like I was saying before, I've got our portal configured for Klevr Grants. So as an applicant, I get a bunch of options across the top that allows me to apply for funding. The portal is agnostic to Dynamics solutions though, and it can be used across different areas of the Dynamics platform. As I logged in as Jared Harvey, I can hit apply for funding and I can see the funds that are open and active and that will allow me to submit applications to. I can see our 2023 graduate fund over here and I can select to open this fund. It'll tell me a little bit of information about it, the start and end dates and some descriptions. And then if I scroll down, here I can see my application that I've submitted to this fund. If I click on this application, it will open for me. I can see the name of the application and how much I've requested. Now this application has already been assessed, so I can see my my outcome, the assessment decision and the decision date. If I was still applying and the application was still open, we do have the concept of being able to invite collaborators to help with the response or with this application form. And then at the bottom, I can actually see the form and the questions that I need to fill in order to provide the organization the information that they need to assess my application and make a funding decision. Everything that you see on these application forms is all configurable inside Klevr Grants by the Klevr Grants user. So you guys are in control of building your own application forms. You can create your own tabs across the top, and in each tab you can add questions of different types. So if I jump over to my program details, we've got some drop-down questions in here, some text responses. We've got some yes, nos, we've got some currencies, some file uploads. So all your common data types are available, and you can create and build different application forms for different funds or different application rounds as you need to. Once the applicant's filled in their form, they'll hit the submit button, and that'll come into Klevr Grants to be assessed. So if I drop back now into our Klevr Grants application, I can see the same application form that we were just looking at here under my Graduate Scholarships Fund. And if I open this application form, it just gives me some overview details about the application. So because it is submitted, I get a submission date. So I can see when Jared submitted his application. I can see the amount he requested. I can see the name of the applicants, the fund that they applied for, the project that their requested amount is going to be applied to. And then, like I said, this one's already been assessed, so I can see some decision information down here, both from an internal decision perspective, but also from an applicant's decision perspective as well. We have a process flow across the top that'll guide the user through the life cycle of this record. In this case, we receive the application in, we assess the application, we then make a decision and an offer, and we're over here now in the contracting phase. So we've agreed to provide the funding, and now we need to put together a funding contract for Jared. I'll just briefly jump across to our assessments tab. This tab is governed by our assessments area just down here in the left-hand menu. We have lots of functionality around the ability to create multiple assessment rounds and create multiple assessments for applications. And we have a strong conflict of interest process as well. If I look at Jared's application, I can see that it's actually been assessed 3 times. It's first been assessed by an internal assessor. It's then been assessed by an external assessment. And then finally, there's been a board review over the top of these assessments, and all of them were approved and all of them were for the full amount. So this gives me a nice view of being able to track how we got from an application being received to an agreement to provide funding for this particular applicant. If I now jump from assessments to my next tab to see contracts, this will show me that we have already created a contract for Jared. If I open the contract itself, I can see the contract header information on here. So again, I can see the contacts, the application, the fund, the project. So all the information and all the data is linked all the way through to the final contract, which means I can get right from my contract and the associated transactions all the way back through to the original campaign and the original funding that made those funding sources against the fund that Jared applied to. I can see the amount against the contract as well as some contract terms and the document. We do have the ability within our Klevr Grants application to produce the contract document from data and information that is stored within the Klevr Grants application, so it can produce your contracts for you. If I jump to the financials tab, I can start to see how we're going to break down the $15,000 contract amount into different budgets that we can then draw down from. So I can see I have $10,000 allocated as ongoing payments throughout the life cycle of the contract. I then have $2,000 allocated to travel, and I have another $3,000 allocated to general claims and disbursements that Jared can make via the portal during the life cycle of this contract. You guys can choose how you want to break your contract amount down, but this just gives you another layer of reporting over the funds and another layer to track performance of contracts as you distribute the funds for various initiatives and projects. If I just scroll down slightly as well, I can see that we've actually generated some transactions already. These transactions are associated to my general budget. So these are the payments that we are going to make out, we're going to make on a monthly basis for this particular contract over its life cycle. And these all relate, if I click on our budget, these all relate to our general budget for the $10,000 amount. Now, if you're going to be making even split payments over the life cycle of the contracts, the grants application will allow you to automatically generate forward-looking transactions. And that's based on defining some schedule parameters down here. So I can say that we are starting to make payments on the 1st of the 7th. We're going to stop making payments on the 31st of the 12th. So we're going over a 6-month period. We're going to pay monthly on the 20th of the month, every month. But we're going to have a slightly larger upfront payment in month 1, and then an even split over the remainder of the schedule. So you can define these parameters, choose the generate transactions button from the top, and that will generate all your transactions for you, which will then allow you to forecast transactions over multiple contracts to see the money leaving the organization over a period of time. These transactions and the contract itself can then be integrated into a financial solution to make the payments. And Klevr Grants is set up to receive integration data back in. So the Klevr Grants user can see what has been paid, what the invoice number that it was paid out against. So they get enough information inside Grants to stop them from needing to flip between multiple applications. I'll just jump back to our contract here. As well as setting up our financial budgets and our transactions, we can also set up milestones. Milestones are those reporting requirements that need to be met by the applicant in order to receive their funding over the life cycle of the contract. Reporting milestones can either be financial or non-financial, so you may just have general progress update milestones or deliverables that don't result in any transactions being paid, or you may actually have financial milestones that need to be met before funding is paid out. So I have a milestone here, which is just around providing some proof of education. Milestones can have a due date, and they have a contact associated to that milestone. This gives you the ability via the portal to have a logged in user who manages the contract, but separate logged in users who are responsible for the delivery of milestones as well. So you can start to invite people to the portal to respond to these reporting requirements. If you need to, milestones can then be broken down into one or more objectives, and these objectives can be submitted and assessed and approved on an individual basis, and they can all roll back up to the approval of the milestone itself. The last thing I want to show you guys is I just want to flick over to the portal again. Over in my top menu, I have my contracts area. So the contracts we created for Jared, once we publish them to the portal, are visible by Jared, so he can view his contracts, view information such as the amount, the terms of the contracts. He actually gets a link to download the contract document in here. Jared can also see the milestone he's got and the date that he needs to submit that milestone for. He has the ability to raise claims. So these claims can draw down against that claims portion of the budget that we specified on the contract financials. Those claims can come through to Klevr Grants, be assessed by you guys and then approved for payment, or sent back to Jared via the portal to gather more information about what the claim was for. And then finally at the bottom, Jared can see the transactions that have either been paid or upcoming transactions if you choose to show that information to him via the portal. So the last thing to mention on the portal, apart from it being configurable, is that we do use accessibility. The portal is fully compliant to WCAG from an accessibility compliance view.